going with all your listings?
Um, a couple have actually sold, you know.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. I still have the eastern part. They're still sitting there, although I'm
Yeah.
starting to see a little bit of traction. And there may be a couple of them that, maybe it's going to be a start again in February.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's
What
yeah.
more can you do, right? I
Well,
don't know.
exactly. It's tricky. It's tricky everywhere and
Yeah,
um well, you're in a larger demographic like kind of area, right?
yeah,
So it's whereas here we're a little more closer knit. Like you can only go so far, but most realtors know each other. Those who are like, actively working in the market. And speaking to one of them the other day, he's like, there's a lot of us that are refusing to take on listings right now just because you're working with some individuals, some, as you probably know, the sellers that aren't willing to come down to reality.
hmm,
And so I'm not taking this listing knowing that at this price, it's not going to move. And
yeah.
then throwing a bunch of money into the listing, right? Only for that to happen. So
And it
it's,
won't move. And we
yeah,
do throw money in the listing.
yeah.
One of the stagers that the owner of my company was hiring to get one of our model homes staged, and the stager actually had to say, I can't do it on that day because I don't have any inventory. I've got, 57 houses that are staged right now that
Kidding.
haven't
Yeah.
sold.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
do you know what
crazy,
I
right?
mean?
Yeah.
But I think the interesting point is, and here's where I am on the fence, because yes, you have to be aggressive with pricing if you want it to
Mhm.
go, and you have to
Yeah.
be able to lower your price.
Yeah.
But for the people that are renewing because they bought during COVID, there's no equity.
Yes.
Uh, sorry, there's no equity, and but yet they still have to get out. So
Yeah.
do you know what I
Such
mean?
a, yeah, it's
How
such a
can you be
tough,
aggressive with price? Not everybody
no,
fits in that box
no.
as I see it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's a difficult pill to swallow for some, that's for
Right.
sure. And
Yep.
making tough decisions because sometimes they have no choice, right? So it's,
A
they,
lot of power sales right now. Like I'm seeing them come up. I wouldn't say daily, but I would say weekly. It's
mhm.
not like I go in and look at the seller's name in every
Yeah.
single listing that comes
Yeah.
up, but I'm just shocked
How many
at how
are,
many are actually coming to fruition. We knew it would happen. Like it's not like we
yeah.
didn't kind of figure, oh shoot, this could be somebody's reality, but
Hmm.
it is. It
Yeah,
is.
it
You
is. And I
you can't
wonder, like,
remortgage it.
with those individuals too, is it better? Do you find that if you know of anyone, obviously, if you don't know who the sellers are, then you can't really comment too much, but like, had
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
actually just been aggressive and take the loss rather than now going into a power sale? Um, like, I'm
Yeah.
wondering how many of those people who would just like, reluctantly sold at a price that they knew they wouldn't be, getting anywhere ahead, wouldn't be in a possible power of sale position right now. They'd still be at a loss, but
Yeah.
not in
Yeah.
the position
Yeah.
that they're at.
I think the hardest part, and this has always been, there he is. Hey,
Good
Chad.
morning. How are
You
you?
know what? And Chad will be able to kind of explain this. We're just
Yeah.
chatting. I think the hardest part with power sales, Crystal, is the tendency, even from when I got in the business 30 years ago, the tendency is always they wait too long. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? They hold on to the house way too long. Had they have put it on the market 3 or 4 months or 6 months earlier when they
Yeah.
were feeling a crunch, then
Yeah.
yeah, they probably could have got out. But you wait too long. Now you've got 30 days until it goes power sale. And where's your aggression? You
Yeah.
can't go aggressive with price because you owe too much money. You owe even more money
Yeah.
than you would have,
Yeah.
6
Yeah.
months ago if you've been failing to pay. So
For sure.
welcome, Chad.
Yes.
Here we are,
Thank you.
talking, talking,
Here we are.
talking.
No, that's great. No, that's great. I
You're
love that.
in.
I
You're
love
in.
that.
We love that you're
Yes.
in. I hate to say this, Crystal, but someone's
Yeah.
having a good time away.
Yeah.
That would be this one.
And it's not us.
Yeah.
You
Yes,
got
it's nice.
it looks
Hot, hot, hot over
beautiful.
here.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, you don't take much time off. You
No.
certainly own so many different businesses and you work, work, work. So it does look like the vacation, honestly, of my dreams. Some of the stuff, if you're
And
not
he's still
following
working
him,
though, Tara. He's still working.
but he's still
Yes,
working.
yes,
Yeah,
that's
true
true. Hey,
story.
you know what? I do love what I do, and it's important to kind of always keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening at
Yeah,
home too. But
Yeah.
I have got some time to let loose a little bit, which is important,
Yes,
extremely important, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's
100%.
1 a.m. there, you said?
It's so midnight. We're just about to
Midnight.
hit midnight. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, hopefully you have plans for when this is done.
Oh
You
yeah.
can.
Oh yeah. We had a good day on the boat today, and so
Oh,
listen, I'm
wow.
good. I'm good.
Wow. Wow. So what are we
So well
ready to
rounded.
start?
We'll give it
Or
another couple minutes just to let,
okay,
because we know people do trickle in right
everybody
at.
comes in during Chad, and a lot of our
Okay.
viewers are in the recorded part when it hits all the
Hmm.
Okay.
public sites. So
Yeah.
Hey, that's
um
excellent. And I'm assuming I can share all of that as well
Oh yeah.
once that hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
100%.
Me.
yeah, be great. Be great. So I'll ask you, Crystal,
Mhm.
because you're kind of on the pulse with a lot of the agent locator clients. Oh, shoot, if you don't, waiting for this call all day,
You're like, of
That's the
eh?
way
All
it
course.
day,
goes.
This
all
is
day. Um, so how are you finding what other people are experiencing? Now, again, we're kind of all over Canada, but are you
Mhm.
seeing people saying when it comes to their leads an uptick, responses are better?
Um, there's a little bit of motivation, but we still get a lot of people watching. They're expecting the market to crash, so to speak. So it's the same,
Okay.
it's basically the same story across where everyone's just waiting, right? Well, everyone's going to wait and everyone's going to pounce at the same time, and you know what's going to happen. So I think it's really hard for a lot of realtors out there to really get the message across that now for many buyers is a great time to be buying simply because the interest rates aren't bad, and they have the ability to negotiate, right? there's
I know.
no there's no stress like buying
Yeah.
or frantic buying. You have the time to go shop and actually negotiate a better price for yourself. But um it's hard. I think so many, well, a lot of people are influenced by media, influenced by, Uncle Joe said this, just having influenced
Absolutely.
by, people they know. And yeah, so I think a lot of them are really kind of in that same struggle of, what can we be doing to encouraging or showing, having the evidence of being able to encourage these buyers to actually take the next step, because a lot of them are
Yeah.
just sitting on their hands waiting and hoping. But again,
So you're
you
still seeing that across the map that people are
know,
still saying they're from their leads point of view, everybody's still trying to say they're not
that's
sure now's
probably
the
the
time.
biggest one of the biggest objections right now is getting them off the fence. And then of course you have, like, the uncertainty of, all the tariffs, and people are still uncertain with that. But that, I think, is the most common, is a lot of people just watching, not actually getting from the I'm just looking online to let's go take a look at some houses and
Right.
see where that gets us.
And I think this is why I really felt it was important to bring Chad on because, and
Mhm.
Chad's going to talk to all of you and welcome everybody. I'll open
Yes.
up the attendees and say
Yeah.
hi to everybody personally, but not only is Chad a remarkable realtor, but he's also got a mortgage brokerage and a wealth management. So he can kind of attest, I think, to predictions on where you think the market is going to go from kind of all levels, Chad. But also,
Yeah.
I'm curious from your being a mortgage broker and being in that industry. how we can maybe get through to people, because we've been trying now for almost a year to
Hmm.
tell them, please stop sitting on the fence. You can negotiate a price.
Hmm.
And we're not getting through to them. So, um, do you want to take it and kind of introduce yourself to
Yeah,
everybody and let them know what your experience is and what you got for us?
sure, absolutely. I appreciate it. I appreciate the intro. So, yeah, just to kind of build on that, over the last 20 years, I've operated in financial planning, starting in banking, and in financial planning, it's kind of the large realm of our savings, our investments, our wealth management side, and then on the other side of the of that, we're looking at debt management, home equity, and how that works. And so coming out of the banking world and moving more into the independent side, I operate as a broker, still on the investment management, still on the mortgage side. And then I've expanded into real estate as well. And so definitely have an interesting perspective on things and where things are going aside from operating a real estate team. Again, like you had said, we deal a lot in mortgages and deal a lot in the wealth management side, and so we're looking at the bond market and investing in the bond market that is directly affecting these changes in interest rates. um, and on the mortgage side, we're actively seeing the changes in there. And so I think kind of to dive in there, and really one of the biggest things that everyone is looking at now is interest rates. And it certainly it's easy to say that interest rates have definitely been one of the large factors that have kind of pulled back the markets from where they were, instilled fear along with many other things, but they're definitely up there being one of the top. And so I think from a real estate or a realtor perspective, it's really important to know that, well, you don't need to be a rate forecaster. And I mean, none of us have a crystal ball anyways, as much as what we would like to pull it out sometimes, it just doesn't exist. There are four dials, we'll call it, that kind of paints the story as to where interest rates are going. And so keeping our eyes on these figures will kind of help guide not only you as a realtor, but be able to have these conversations and give this advice piece to your clients, right? And so really for those, of course, the big one, we've all heard this nonstop. It's a broken record at this point, and that's inflation. The other one would be jobs. So new jobs coming in, unemployment rates, and of course, how that affects the economy, or how we can kind of take the temperature of the economy. Consumer sentiment. So really how are people feeling about what's going on in the economy, both locally, internationally? And then growth, and we can kind of dive into figures like GDP. And again, it doesn't, you don't have to be an expert in all of this. You don't have to be an economist or a financial advisor. It's more just understanding the makeup that drives the underlying rates, right? um, okay, so those are our four pieces. Monitoring those when we see them on headlines, that's a great way of kind of navigating this. And again, one of my favorite lines is keeping monitoring the pulse of the markets, right? But let's dive into where these sit today, and what we see kind of moving forward based on where these are sitting today. And so one of the biggest one again is that inflation rate. So CPI, we're currently sitting at 1.9% year over year in August, which is our last reading that we had there. So things are certainly easing when it comes to inflation, and they have been, and it's very, very positive. The target range that the Bank of Canada looks at, they want to be around that 2% mark, and so being slightly below that, it's positive for where inflation. It's positive as far as where rates will potentially go. Uh, I would say the one thing holding back, because the conversations I have are, well, that's great that inflation's come down, certainly from the peaks that we were at one point. But why? Other than the positive news that we just had on September 17th with the interest rate drop, but why previously then were rates not coming down quicker? And Tara, you had mentioned it. It's another one of those words, unfortunately, we hear over and over and over again, and that's tariffs, right? I truly believe, and I mean, it's been put out there that because of the inflationary nature of tariffs are a tax on products that come in or products that are exported. And so by nature, they increase inflation. And because of that, the Bank of Canada is cautious, right? So they pull back or they hold back and pause these interest rate decreases as a way of being cautious as we kind of navigate through this market and these changes. But as we saw with that recent the recent drop or cut in the overnight rate on the 17th, we
Right.
are still moving forward. And there are these other factors. One of them being unemployment rate. So we're sitting at 7.1% as of August on unemployment. And when we look at all of these pieces, again, inflation is a huge part of what gets baked into making these decisions by the Bank of Canada, but it's a piece of the pie. Another piece would definitely be unemployment or the job market. And so we look at this higher unemployment rate and kind of the labor market loosening. And so this will push the Bank of Canada more and more to ease on rates, right? Because one
Okay.
of their big kind of tools or levers that they can pull is interest rates. So if the economy is slowing down, this is a way that they can ease things and improve the environment. So we've got our inflation. It's just slightly below target, but let's call it at target. Unemployment higher than what we would like it to be. That's for certain. Real GDP. So this is when we kind of dive into the numbers a little bit further, and that's fallen about 0.4% quarter over quarter. So things are slowing down when we're looking at it from an economic standpoint. And then consumer sentiment. So how are people feeling? And people are cautiously optimistic, but I would lean a little heavier on the cautious side of things, right? So
Right.
when we look at kind of these major factors that contribute to what the Bank of Canada is going to do, people, that rate trajectory is certainly pointing downwards, which
Okay.
when we look at that from a real estate perspective and for our realtors and our of course our clients, things are looking good that way. Things are looking good that way.
So can I interject for a little bit? Is that
Yep,
okay,
sure.
Crystal? Well, you know I
Yeah,
do
absolutely.
anyways, right?
Yeah. I don't know why you're
Right? I
asking.
mean, it is, yeah, sorry about that. It's not our first rodeo. Um, there's another announcement in October. Am I right, Chad? I feel like.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
October 29th.
29. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Right at the end. Do
Right
you
at the end.
feel if they reduce, so it kind of sounds like you're thinking they're going to drop again, most
Yeah.
likely, popular opinion. Um,
Popular opinion, and
right.
I like to run on the optimistic side of things. So yes,
Okay.
I believe
Right.
so.
It's all about mindset, right?
That's it.
Um, if they were to do that, and that comes true because we have a lot of realtors, and again, let's go back to the fact that we're with Agent Locator. We are all purchasing leads. Chad as well buys leads, everybody with Agent Locator. We're
Absolutely.
all in the same boat here. And getting conversion and getting these people to understand now's the time. With another rate reduction, do you think that is going to be a bit more motivation for people to jump and start looking and going into houses again? Or do you suspect they're going to say, okay, well, we're a little bit lower now, but are we going to go a little bit lower in November? And then I'll wait again. I'm
Yeah.
asking you to read people's minds, which is
No, no, I
ridiculous.
love it. I love it. This is this is where, as realtors, we become advisors.
Yes,
And I also have to preface this because after 20 years of being an advisor, there are still people that I advise and will do the complete opposite, right? So just because they don't take advice
yeah,
doesn't mean that you're not good at what you do. Um,
right,
this, in my mind, wholeheartedly, I believe we have a runway for value right now. And even when I was first kind of jumped in, you were talking about it briefly, but we have a runway for value right now, whether that be from this point until early spring, this point until summer. It's hard to kind of time it perfectly, and I will never be one that's going to try to time it.
yeah,
This would be the time to look into things, and this is where you're going to get, yeah, maybe it's not the lowest rate that's going to be in the market in the next year. However, it's marry the house, date the rate, right? You're going to get that value now. You're going to save that money off that selling price now, and then be able to kind of carry that forward. I think that we're going to start to see more and more people kind of jump into the market. I don't think it's going to be the run to the market
right.
until I honestly think it's going to be early spring. And
Yeah,
to Crystal's point earlier, that is when everyone decides it's time to go jump into the market. That is when we get into multiples. That's when price level increases exponentially, right? And so for those individuals who are looking at who are testing the waters, who are looking and ready, if the right property came along, it's now more than ever. It's not that idea of, well, let's save 0.1% or even 0.2% on the mortgage. If we take the strategy when it makes sense of, okay,
yeah,
maybe instead of doing the fixed rate, we look at a variable rate instead, and knowing that, okay, maybe we're not going to be at the lowest rate right now if we take variable. However, we will ride that rate down as things continue to fall. And this was one of the points that I wanted to touch on from the mortgage perspective as well. This strategy is just so important. Again, we talk all these kind of advice pieces that we can use as realtors to speak to our clients. And that's okay. If it makes sense when we look at the big perspective for a client to take a variable rate mortgage, and even if they don't love variable rate mortgages, they can still ride that rate down, get into the house for a better value at this point, and then in 6 months or a year from now, when fixed rates have dropped, they can lock in their mortgage without paying a penalty to a fixed rate. And just while I'm on that really quick, uh, if we look at, so I was mentioning a bit on the where interest rates are, Bank of Canada's control of over everything, and that's really focused on the variable side of things. However, the fixed rate does tend to echo what the variable is doing. But I think the biggest and the key point to remember right now is if we're looking simply at fixed rates, then we look at that 5-year treasury bond, because that is what depicts where our fixed rate or our 5-year fix is going. That's sitting at 2.69% right now. So we have a large spread, as say fixed rates, call it around 4% right now. That's a large spread from where true rates are to where we're what we're measuring off of, right? And so we kind of look at that as a leading indicator of where these fixed rates are going. So again, sorry, a long way of saying I do think that we'll start to see people trickle in more and more into the market because it's so emotionally driven. The more good news we
yeah,
have from rates lowering, improvements in certain areas, that's going to help more and more. But unfortunately, this idea of a rush back to the market, I think it's going to be all at once. And I think, or a lot, the
Right.
majority, and I think it's going to be early spring.
So what I want to say now, thank you,
Yeah.
is we do have some people in the house. If you guys have questions, remember Chad not only is a realtor and a lead converter, but mortgage broker as well as, he's in wealth and finance. Ask your questions in the chat. I've got my chat closed, but I know our sweet Crystal is always on it. So please speak up because the reason everybody, and I know you guys are normally used to just listening to me and we talk about how to convert leads and so forth. I see across the map, not only as a realtor, but also being the manager of my brokerage. I understand what realtors are going through with buyers not wanting to buy, and our listings are sitting for a very long period of time. And really, at the end of the day, I've always said this. You guys have been listening to me now. How long have I been on here, Crystal? Is it 4 years maybe?
Uh, yeah,
Too long?
long time,
Just
long
kidding.
time.
Yeah, long time. Too long, maybe. Too long. I've always said that if we can be the one that brings the news to them first, or if we can be the realtor that says, okay, like Chad said, I know you heard on the news X. Here's a little bit of what my mortgage broker says, or my go-to wealth and finance person says. Read here for more, then we're only going to help build trust. So I just want to throw this out there. I can see you're asking questions, so I'm going to
Mhm.
let Crystal run. Chad's information, do we have that we can post as well on the chat, Crystal? Or can
Yeah.
you send a link in the chat, Chad, of where
Yeah,
people can
absolutely. I
find
can.
you, if that's easier? Because
Mhm.
I'm just going to throw this out there. Not only have I met Chad, his team of realtors, they actually moved to the brokerage that I manage, Land and Gate, February of this year. I've actually started referring a lot of my clients to him from the mortgage broker side too. He's absolutely incredible. And I think everybody rewatch this video as well, because sometimes you got to go, we got to run, we got to show houses.
Yeah.
Because there is no one better for you to get information from an economist point of view to mortgage. And then how can we get those people in the car? I'm going to take
Right.
a line right here. Crystal, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
you know that when it comes to conversion, I'm always at the top of my game. The
Yeah.
reason being is I'm spending a lot of money and I don't want to waste my money. It's just me in this household supporting, me. So I'm committed. This is
Yeah.
something that I am committed to. I work
Mhm.
it and I do it to the best of my ability. I
Mhm.
am seeing my leads are responding more in the last 3 weeks. They're responding to my email drips. They're asking me questions. They're booking showings more. So when I see people reply to my drips that I send out, that has always been my big indication that they're getting one step ready. I
Mhm.
still know everybody, it's not going to happen tomorrow. I'm not miraculously going to get them in the car that day and sell them a house, 2 hours later. But all I need is the communication back, and it's picking up, and
Mhm.
it's slowly been. So I just want to kind of throw that out
Yeah.
there. We don't want to give up, everybody. We don't.
No.
Let's start with our questions. What do we have?
You betcha. So I've got all my screens. I've got a laptop and a computer, and I keep grabbing the mouse, and it's not the laptop. Uh, we have Saka here. He's got a question, reflecting on the variable that he mentioned that a lot of brokers are suggesting the variable, but is it harder for a buyer to get qualified on a variable than it is on a fixed rate?
That's a great question. That's a great
Yeah.
question. And I think this is why it's so important to have these advisors or network that we can have consistent communication with. Because even for us, each individual lender changes rules in the way that they qualify things based on the economy and based on their own appetite for risk. these things can change quite often. I will say this, however, when it comes to the variable side of things, it is not like it was difficult to, or more difficult, I should say, to qualify for a mortgage versus a fixed rate. It is still always the contract rate plus 2%. Can that change in the future? Maybe. Has it been different in the past? Absolutely. But where we sit as of today from a qualification standpoint, it is not more difficult to qualify for a variable than what it is for a fixed. Now, one kind of caveat to that. However, if the fixed rate is lower than what the variable rate mortgage is, so let's call it where we're sitting as of today, that variable rate mortgage sits at 4.25%, and that 3-year fixed sits at 3.99%, then yes, because just naturally the fixed rate is lower, it'll be easier to qualify. But if you're just to kind of look apples to apples, if they were both sitting at the exact same interest rate, one is not more difficult to qualify for than the other.
Good news. Good news.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
What
I
else
think
do
that's
we have?
the strategy that I think when I bought, my mortgage agent did the exact same thing, because it was a lower rate. We can get you proof for the amount that you need, and then you could lock
Right.
in whenever you want. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Ali is asking, so when a lead tells us they want to wait and watch to see how the economy unfolds, and importantly, when they very confidently share that prices will continue to drop, so the buyer that knows all, how would you respond to that or handle that without contesting their beliefs or their research? So if they're watching the market and they are confident in what they're telling of, like, no, prices are going to drop, I'm standing still. How would you go? I guess how would you respond or handle that without, contesting?
Offending?
Yeah,
Yes.
offending them. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people out there that have done their research with I call it City Panic 24, and Uncle who's
Yeah.
so it does become challenging, and again I'll kind of revert back to the idea that we cannot make decisions for people, we can simply advise. And in scenarios like that, it's kind of one of those areas where I will do a touch base. I'm not going to say, okay, no, these are the reasons why you're wrong, because then defense, backup, I don't want to be dealing with this person, right? But what I will do is I will touch base a month from then, when we've had a rate decision, when we've seen where changes to price levels. And instead of, and I'm not saying that this is wrong, but this is just how I operate, instead of just coming out and saying, year over year, here's the change to price level or the change to volumes and sales, I will use that information to then translate to the client, this is what's happening in the market. And I know we thought that rates were going to, or that price level was going to continue to drop, or things were going to dry up, or this with inventory, right? But Mr. and Mrs. Client, look at what we're actually seeing now. So this is interesting, isn't it? So instead of kind of going against what they're saying, their beliefs, their own research, it's here, I'm with you, I'm advising you, I'm keeping you up to date, which is, in my opinion, especially for cold leads, the way that we can win their hearts, the way that we can win that trust piece, is by being there with information, keeping them in the loop from where we see it. And when it comes to things like these numbers that come in, they're indisputable, right? We can have an opinion piece on whether or not price level is going to change dramatically in the next 6 months. And that's fine, and we can all have our own opinions. But what we can speak on confidently and with cold, hard, black and white figures is where things are at right now. So it's difficult, and I know sometimes you want to reach through that computer or phone or whatever the case may be, and you want to shake them and say, listen, but it's certainly not the end of it. It's just more, part of the road or the journey that we have to work with that client. And so following up, like I said, in a month from that point, or anytime we have any type of piece, we have a list of clients who are at different areas, and we'll reach out to them with these updates. Yeah.
Nice.
I think it's really important too, Ali, and I thank you for coming on again. He's such a nice supporter of our webinars. It is a challenge that everybody is saying this is the go-to line, the economy. I don't know. I'm going to wait. you know what I mean? And here's what I have found to be somewhat successful, because no matter what, remember what I always say, everybody, this is their show. It's not our show, right?
Mhm.
However, what people don't understand is waiting can technically cost them money, especially when they have a house to sell. So I started creating scenarios back to them where I would say, I totally understand where you're coming from. So let me just give you this scenario as I know it today. We know that your property is already worth, 975,000. What we know is in 30 days, the market dropped 6.5%. So, waiting means that value of your home is going to slowly come down, and we know it's going to consistently come down until it stabilizes. We're not talking about a price increase. We're talking about stabilization, meaning it's not going to drop anymore for a little bit. So I'll give them that scenario and I'll say, if you decide to wait to see what happens with tariffs and so forth, what if come March, the market hasn't changed and now your home is worth, $799? So I try to throw different scenarios their way. And then I always say as well, everybody, remember what you're buying drops too, but we're talking about equity that's in your home, right? So sometimes it's better to test the market. I am seeing a ton of seller conditions in listings that are coming on the market. Meaning, I'm putting it on the market now, but if you bring me an offer, there's going to be a 14-day seller condition on me finding a property. That is also another example, another scenario I give them so that they understand putting their marketing property on the market now, trying to sell, there's still so much we can do to protect them. But the equity is changing every day, and right now it's going lower, right? So sometimes that's my key is I create different scenarios, and once I say it certain ways, then they'll be like, oh, okay, so I can try and I can still be protected.
Mhm.
If that helps. Okay, next
I
question.
think that's great.
Thanks, Chad.
That's it for questions, I think, on this, that, so far. So any more
Okay.
questions, you guys, you can also put them in the chat. If you have them, we'll ask as Chad's going through various topics.
And what else do you have for us, Chad?
Yeah. So one of the other things that I was going to bring up were just a couple areas of potential, or call it niches, to watch for. And they're quite polar opposite on kind of the spectrum of real estate, but that's okay. One of them being the condo market, and obviously there has been an absolute ton of conversation surrounding this, and 2025 in particular has been a very rough patch for the condo market, especially as we kind of move into the city a little bit more. So high inventory, softer prices, weaker investor demand. We're still seeing inventory and supply come to the market, and of course, it's just simple supply and demand, right? With this, however, we talk about these pockets of potential value, right? And I do believe that there is, again, not trying to time it perfectly, but I do believe that there is a lot of future value in the condo market, particularly as we move outside of the GTA. So from our wealth management business, we deal with a ton of retirees. And so these are a lot of people that are selling their homes in the GTA and Durham region, and they are wanting out of the hustle and bustle, and they are wanting simplicity. They're wanting to travel 6 months out of the year. Um, or on the other side of kind of the other side of the downsizing picture for
Right.
those who are not retiring, but those who are looking to simplify their monthly payments, right? To improve their cash flow. And so we're starting to see, and again, I'm kind of speaking from a micro perspective in our own business with our clients. So many of these individuals are selling their properties and they are moving further east and they want a condo scenario. Now, it's not going to be for everyone, but
Hmm.
I think we're going to see more and more retirees want that simplicity. And the more people I talk to, and I talk to a lot of people who are moving into that retirement space, and they are wanting to do travel. They love Canada, but they want to experience things outside of here. Maybe avoid the winters. That's obviously been a theme for a long time. And with that, having that condo, it makes things a lot simpler. Plus, they have the ability to then, for many, cash out of large equity positions, which is going to further fuel their retirement, right? And so from a condo perspective, I think that there is a lot of value that's in there right now. I still think that we're probably going to see prices drop further. Where that lands, I don't know. And again, I will never try to time out the bottom of any market, but we can all agree that condos have dropped substantially from where they were. And so, is there value in there? I would say so. And then,
Right.
even from an investor perspective, the investors are starting to sniff around again. We're seeing that
Are
on the new
they?
build side. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because there's so many of these individuals who they've been sitting on the sidelines, they're watching, and then so many of these sellers, unfortunately, there's our sellers like anything who are going to stick to their price, and that is what it is. I don't
Hmm.
care if I'm on there for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but there are a lot of people that don't have that ability, or they're ready to move on to their next chapter or divest from the market, whatever the case may be. And so there's a lot of negotiation power right now when it comes to the condo. And so if you have clients that are kind of looking in that market or considering that market, it's something that I would definitely be watching closely. And I would say, especially from now into kind of that early to mid 2026.
Do you feel it's better with the market today, if people are sniffing around for condos, it's better to go the new condo route or to do the resale? Because I know that the
It's a
builders,
great
and we're
question.
talking a lot in the Toronto area where the condo builders, a lot of them have folded, right? Or people
Mhm.
are doing assignments because they're just not ready. I just saw in the news there's a brutal one in Kitchener right now, like brutal what the new owners are going through and occupancy. Um, are we talking best if they're dropping to go resale as opposed to the new build?
It's such a great question because it's like most things, right? There's that balance. What we're seeing on some of these condos that are out there on the resale is super high condo fees, right? Maybe mismanagement of
Yeah.
condo fees that have created exponentially high maintenance fees moving forward. And so I think it's kind of having that balance of maybe not brand new where we're taking these risks where there's
Hmm.
things that aren't complete, but maybe not too old either. It's kind of baking in that
That's fair.
perfect piece, right? It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because at the same time, and Tara, I'm sure you've seen a ton of them as well. There's a lot of value out there in some of these assignments too, where people are just walking away from their deposit, and the builder doesn't care, but they're walking away from these deposits. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, you could get something that's brand new, done completely, walk in, turnkey. You're not dealing with someone else's headache. But again, like you said, there's been a few scary scenarios right now in the condo market as far as builders are concerned. So it's hard to say. I personally, what would I do? I would probably buy something that's maybe 5 years old. That's what I would lean towards myself if
Me
it
too.
met all the other check marks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a weird time, and I think everybody, I don't know for the people that are watching us right now, how many years you've got in the business, but overlooking all of the years that I got involved in real estate and what I've said, and I hope that this will be the last time I say this, but it's been the weirdest market I've ever seen. I've never seen listings, sit and
Oh yeah.
crickets, like no showings. And this is where I say to people, in my career, even when the market was crashing, we put a listing on the market and buyers still book showings. Like there was
Mhm.
activity. So when there's activity, there's hope, right? When we have a lot of inventory, our agent locator leads get listings emailed to them 3 times a day because there's always new stuff. The problem is now our agent locator leads are getting new listings, but they're also getting those same listings with price changes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, wait a minute, I've already seen this one. Oh, there's another cancel relist and it's back
Yeah.
again. It's such a weird market. I had Chad and his group speak at I had like an event a couple weeks ago where we call it a lunch and learn. And there was another agent from another company. He got into the business, was about 2 years before me. And so I'm like, Ken, what are you thinking about 2025? And he went, never seen anything like it, like right up, straight up. And I think from a realtor's perspective, because everybody, I always talk about mindset. If we don't stay focused, if we don't stay positive, no matter how hard deep in our soul it is, because it's not easy to live financially when you're on commission sales. I mean, we're all in the same boat. But if we don't stay positive, we'll get sucked into what this market has been like for all of us. I mean, this just isn't GTA. This is all across Canada. And of course, even the US, as far as I understand, has been hit substantially,
Mhm.
even with the tariff issues and their leader. So I'm going to give you an example of when I was talking to the owner of our company yesterday, and we were talking about getting one of our model homes staged, or she was getting one of our model homes staged. And she calls her go-to stager. I mean, she does hundreds of properties a year. And she was like, okay, I need you to go in Friday and I need you to stage. We've done the punch out. It's ready to go, ready to start doing our open houses. And the stager's like, I got no inventory. I got 57
Mhm.
houses that have products sitting in it and they haven't sold. Can you give me till Friday because I'm cleaning out one? When do we hear that? So, Chad, from your perspective, from all of your companies combined, I know you said at the event that we had a couple of weeks ago, there does seem to be a light at the end of this dark tunnel that we're all seeing. I know it's hard to say when, but you really do think with the lowering of the rates at some point next year, we're going to see buyers back in hopefully full time back in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll say, like, even with myself, so on our real estate division, we have a buyer pool. We've had many who have been sitting on the sidelines. We're starting to see that interest come in again, whether that be from looking at listings. A lot of those have actually converted into going out and seeing listings, which we all know
Yeah.
is very, very positive as far as kind of trajectory and timelines, right? So there's that. And of course, again, we try to advise towards that because we know that there's value in the current market.
Yeah.
But again, I really, really believe, put it this way, RBC, who tends to be a bit more conservative, they're saying that price levels will slightly decrease to flat until spring of 2026, and then modest increase from there. TD a little bit earlier on that. And again, but the same idea. I truly believe that we're going to see, especially in February, March, things start to really pick up. And again, and as painful as what it is, and it is painful, no matter where you are in this market, as a realtor,
Mhm.
it has been challenging, right? And this is when we gotta dig in and have those conversations with clients and give these advice pieces and build that trust that is going to, when the markets are good, pay dividends over and over and over again, right? And so, yes, I truly believe, and the numbers are speaking, that the light at the end of the tunnel is there, and we're almost there. We're almost there.
Right,
Um,
right.
but ultimately, churning and giving that advice at this point in time, and until we get there, it is
Hmm.
it's so important. It's so important. But we're almost
Now,
there. I truly believe.
you have a production team that does a lot of reels, and I'm putting this out there for
Yeah,
everybody. I think usually they're pretty shareable on your Instagram pages and
absolutely.
Facebook. For all of you, if you kind of just want, they're really good because sometimes they're just a little bit of an update. You tend to do, okay, think about this from the mortgage industry, blah, blah, blah. So, sometimes using something like that, I don't know if you want permission from people, but I'm a firm believer like, I'm not a mortgage broker, so I don't want to share information unless I'm basically copying it from you and then giving you the credit, right?
Right.
But when you have these things to share on your socials or share them as a mass email to your leads, I feel like it's one way of saying, hey, I work with great industry partners who do have positivity for you because our people are filled with Trump tariffs and negativity. Our buyers,
Absolutely.
our leads, our sellers can't see outside this dark cloud. And
Absolutely.
if you want to follow him and kind of just sort of share the little tidbits, I usually will take it and put it on my story because at the end of the day, our stories get a lot of views. And I do think there could be one sentence in there that somebody may just need to hear, right?
Absolutely.
Just because you send an email and they're not going to read, they're not going to open the PDFs, they're not going to open any of this stuff. And the only way that we can get people moving now is by giving them the information that has the light when all they see is dark. Because no matter what, Chad, even if the market does pick up next year, now is still the best time to buy.
It absolutely is.
Like,
And to your sorry, and to your point, Tara, it's all of these markets, especially when we're dealing with someone's nest egg and their first home or where they're downsizing from, and they've grown up in that home for the
yeah,
last 30 years with their family. It's so emotionally driven, and then on top of that, what we get from the news and the media and Uncle Bill, right? Poor Uncle Bill. We're talking about him a lot today, but all of these different sources, they drive that emotion further,
yeah,
right? And so I agree wholeheartedly, and this is why we've went so heavy into the social side of things and video production, because I feel that it can connect with people more emotionally, right? And we talk about that
yeah,
trust piece again, and instead of having it written down in words. And listen, the emails are great; these drip campaigns, they're excellent, but to have this as another tool in our belt that we can push out there, I think it's so important. And anyone on the call or who watches this in the future, if there are any questions, and it doesn't matter what the questions are, reach out. I will get back directly. And on top of that, any of the social stuff that we have, feel free to share it. And I'll even say this: one of my focuses moving forward are creating individual kind of educational series Like I have one coming out specifically on negative equity and how to navigate that with a client. I have one coming out on the cottage market, one on the condo market, and how to navigate that from a financial perspective, downsizing, how to navigate that conversation as a realtor. But anyways, we're more than happy to assist with any of the questions or thoughts, or even I think one of the most important ones that kind of segue into conversation with clients, right? Maybe you feel uncomfortable to bring up a certain topic or approach a certain topic, and so the way that I navigate that with my team, specifically on the real estate side, is getting them comfortable with those conversations. And ultimately, you becoming that advisor for the client, which for your client, which could simply be, hey, here's someone who I think you should talk to about this. That's advice. That's building trust. And so
Mhm.
I think it's so, so, so important. So anyone who's watching now or anyone who's going to be watching in the future, we're
Yeah,
certainly there for the conversation.
good. Crystal, is there
Yeah.
anything that you want to add to this? Any other questions that you have based on your talks with so many account holders with Agent Locator? Because they reach out to me, and I know there's a lot of people that are really,
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to
There,
believe the leads. It's easy to believe the leads,
yeah,
but it isn't. And I
and
always
you,
want this to end with everybody that sees it going, guys, like there's conversion still here, and you
yes.
just got to be on top of it.
A
So what are you
hundred
feeling?
percent. 100%. I'd find like right now with the most common thing we're seeing is those that are struggling more are pulling back on their lead generation. They're pulling back sometimes in services altogether just because they don't have the money or they don't have the money
Yeah,
set aside to carry themselves through.
yeah,
So I guess from the financial advising kind of standpoint, Chad, and for anyone that may be approaching this or currently there, what would be your suggestion for some a realtor to be able to keep their business going and not give up these tools that are essentially going to help them get to the next level?
Yeah, that's a
it's
great
tough.
question. And
Yeah,
it is tough. And I would say that each case definitely has to be looked at individually. There's so when it comes to kind of business planning and development, there's so many tools that are out there that we can use, but of course it's got to make sense as well. We don't want to get to a point where someone's
hmm,
leveraging themselves to an incredible level that it's extremely detrimental. But there are a lot of people out there as well that maybe they just need the tools or they need a different perspective on looking at what they actually have available to them so that they don't have to cut things right now, right? And yeah, so that's a huge part in what we do, and we leverage our partners, even sometimes on the banking side of things to find ways, and even it is a a whole other realm of things. But I do quite a bit of work on um, uh, the DBIA, so Business Improvement Association, and specifically in Clarington. And there are so many grants that are out there for individuals in our positions as realtors, service providers to improve our marketing. So if you're spending anyways, there are grants out there that you can apply for and access that will kind of help cushion the spending during especially periods of hard time, right? But again, there's it really comes down to that planning piece, and this is certainly something that we could look into, but it really comes down to that planning piece. There are options out there though, that's without question, and I think like so many things, I'm big on the idea of no rock unturned. And so if someone's out there and they're feeling stuck and they're not sure what to do, um I'd be happy to have that conversation or someone from the team, and maybe that's something that we can put out in print or video as well, because there are incredible options out there, right?
Mhm. That's good.
Let me ask you, Crystal, before we go to John's question. I think John had a question. When somebody is feeling the hit and they go to Agent Locator, I know this is how it used to be, they can pause their leads, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So they can pause. So basically, you're no longer paying your ad budget anymore, but you still have access as long as you're paying your website fee to your dashboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you still
Mm-hmm.
have access to your
Yep.
dashboard?
You still have access to your dashboard. Yeah.
And if you pause your leads, do the leads still get emailed listings every day?
Yes, they would still
Okay.
get their listings. And what we see with some, because we don't typically would do this, is they're getting rid of that. So they're getting rid of all automation, stripping right down to the bare bones,
Okay.
which,
So
if they're
let
in
me
there working and doing things, that's great.
yeah,
But
don't do
a
that.
lot they're not. Yeah, so they're turning
Yeah.
all of that opportunity off. The contacts are still there, but we're no longer getting them the information that we want to be getting them automatically. So
Okay.
yeah, we
So
try
let's
we,
not
we
do that.
try to
Let's not do
not,
it.
yeah, we don't want to do
Right.
that. But again, it's some of them are just in that tight spot where
Yeah.
every dollar matters at this point.
And
To
here's what my suggestion is, and I'm going to give this beautiful example. And I understand that. So this is where from, somebody it's just me. It's just me trying to manage all of these things. So, let's bring the ad budget down. Let's take a pause. Let's ride this out as a pause for at least 60 days. Let's keep those leads that we have in our dashboard getting listings. Figure that part out. I'm sure that's a very minimal cost, minimal, because I got a text last night from an agent in our office. I won't say their name. Well, maybe I could, but they happen to be on right now. And Tara, a lead that came in 238 days ago, I just converted and sold them a house. And this is what I always say for those that are watching. I always say this, all you need is one deal that will then pay the agent locator expense for multiple months, if not a year. So you don't want to give up on that dashboard because there's so much money in there. And if you need reassurance, please, please, please contact me. What I do is I go through however many leads are on your dashboard. Let's say you've got 50. Let's say you've got 60. Let's say you've got 250. Don't care. Now let's figure out what 2.5% commission is based on the average sale price that those people are probably going to buy. We can even go low, 600,000. Let's just go low. Then look at that dollar amount of commission that's inside your dashboard. And you tell me you can't get one or two of those people in the car? Of course you can. It happens every day. The older leads are usually the ones that'll buy more quicker. So go to Agent Locator, figure out what your options are, and don't just kibosh it all at once, right?
mm-hmm.
Right.
Because you're
Yeah.
basically giving all the other agents that have these people as well on their dashboards, you're just
Mm-hmm.
giving all of us the commission. And I don't want that for anybody. Anybody. All right. So there you go, Crystal.
There
You're
we have
welcome.
it. There we have it.
All
We're
right.
seeing a lot of that.
John had
So
a
we got,
question.
we have Sackett too. He's got 2 pre-sale completions coming end of October. And in one instance, the appraisal came in lower. So the mortgage value has dropped and they are being asked to put more down than estimated. Assignments are not being allowed by the developer as they still have inventory left.
Right.
What advice would you give to deal with a situation where the client feels that they're being ill-advised, even though there was no way of telling this would happen as it was a 2023 purchase?
Right. Right.
Oh, Chad, this is my nightmare. Your
Yeah.
nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There are specific lenders out there, and at this point, unfortunately, it's off the table. But when a client is purchasing, maybe one of the ideas to have in the back of your mind is there are specific lenders out there that will lock in that value. So even if they purchased in 2023 for X amount, they're not going to reassess that in the future. That is what they're basing it off of. Well, where there are also a lot of lenders who won't. They're reassessing based on current value. So that could be something to have in the back of your mind. Again, there's people focus so much on rate, but sometimes there's other things that come into play that are equally or often, like in this case, more important. When it comes to the scenario as it sits right now, the property has been appraised for less than the purchase price, and as a result, the loan to value is, you're sitting at 80%. You're required to put down more money. It's not on anyone except for what's happened in the markets. What you could do is potentially ask for a secondary opinion on appraisals. What we will do is we will reach out to our partners in appraisals and say, hey, if we really disagree on a value standpoint, hey, this is what this came in at. This is where we believe it should be. What are your thoughts, right? They don't have to go through the entire process of reappraising the property, but if they think that there's some potential wiggle room there where your client could end up putting less down, then maybe that would be an area of going about. Ultimately, it's going to be in the broker's hands how they navigate that. But as it stands from a lender standpoint, they're government mandated as far as their loan to values they have to stick to. And if that was part of their agreement that they were going to assess the property value at completion, unfortunately, we are in the mercy of the market. But again, I would still look to what our options are. Is there a way to get a second opinion? And I'll tell you that I have seen dramatic differences in price values and appraised values that have come through in the exact same period of time from two different appraisers. So it may be worth at least having that conversation. And again, from your client standpoint, they know that you're going to bat for them, and you're looking outside of the box, and just instead of putting your hands up and saying, that's the market.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah,
All right, next question.
It is.
Well, John, I'm not sure what John's question is. So I don't know if you have a question or if you were maybe commenting when
one of us was speaking. Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, this has been super informative. Chad, and you're still awake. That's good.
Right?
I know. Now I'm wired.
You're wired.
all of this real estate talk. Now I'm going to be up all night.
You want to get home, don't you? Forget about your trip.
Yeah, I know. It's funny, even the transactions that have been going on with the team, and I'll touch on, because I think it's important as well, the amount of conversions that we are getting on the agent locator side right now it's unreal. People are booking tours through it. People are people who 6 months ago were testing waters. Now they're wanting to jump into them. And this is across the entire team. So it's happening. And again, we kind of use this as a way of assessing, where things are going moving forward. And I really, really, really believe, like I was saying, that kind of that spring market. But I think now is the time to be having these conversations, and we are converting. So it's awesome.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with the value. This is where people shop on Google. Mm-hmm. So that's why we gotta just stay. I think a lot of the people that give up too early are the people that haven't developed a timeline. They haven't developed, what do I do every day to work my leads? They haven't created an email drip program that works for them. Guys, you don't even have to create your own. You can take what Agent Locator has and you can make it your own little bits. But it starts with a plan of action, like anything else, right? And you just stick to it. But this has been great. Crystal, I think we need to have Chad on with us again, don't you?
I think so.
But he's got to be on Canadian time this time. You can come back next week, right?
Yes. I do.
Okay. Well, this has been
and I'll hit the ground running all relaxed.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. All tanned and relaxed. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
This has been awesome. Any final words, Crystal?
I don't have any other than it was great having both of you on. I think this is a great discussion that needs to happen more often. Tons of value for everyone, not even just realtors. I think that this could be something that we can open up to the consumer as well, because a lot of what we talked about was applicable to everyone, not just not
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
us from a professional standpoint. So it was great. It was great.
And Gail, I just saw your comment and I will help you with your agent locator. You know, why don't you don't live that far away from me, all right? We're gonna get you business out of there, girl. Okay,
Awesome.
awesome. Well, thank you
Perfect. Well, thanks,
everybody, and to
Joel.
everybody watching, when you see
Thank
this,
you very much.
chat,
See
have
ya.
a good one.
Alrighty. Bye,
Take care,
guys.
Okay.
guys. Bye for now.